My name is Adam Beestrom. I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing here at Qcells North America. I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, where we'll be diving into topics in sustainability, specifically the EPEAT Ecolabel Program, which we'll get into shortly. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. Feel free to write any questions you have for the presenters in the Q&A box at any time during the webinar. We'll have a Q&A at the end, so we can go through any questions you might have as we conclude. We're going to be recording the webinar today as well, and there will be a survey at the end, so we appreciate your feedback at the conclusion of today's session. And then we'll also be sending a copy of the presentation for all participants after the webinar. Next slide, please. All right, I'm joined here by a brilliant trio of Qcells colleagues. We've got Jessica Chapman, who's our Sustainability and EPEAT Program Manager. We have Peyton Meyer, who's our Sustainable Energy Leadership Program Associate. And then we have Scott Bell, who's our VP of Partnerships and Governance over at our Cartersville factory in Georgia. Each of them offering and bringing their unique knowledge and insights into Qcells sustainability commitments and what the road looks like ahead. Next slide, please. So you might be thinking to yourself, of course, sustainability is an obvious inherent part of solar. Solar modules pull power from the sun, converting it into usable clean energy without on-site fossil fuel emissions. It's really a given, right? Well, while solar energy itself plays a central part in enabling a clean energy economy, did you know that actually not all solar is created equal, and that some solar modules are in fact officially verified to be more sustainable than others? That there's a robust program offered by the Global Electronics Council that can objectively qualify a product's sustainability via an eco-label, just like the one you'd see for example, your Energy Star rated washer and dryer at home. Today, we'll be talking about the EPEAT program and Qcells' broader commitments to advancing a sustainability future. I'll begin things with a brief company overview of Qcells before passing it over to Jessica, who will be providing an overview of EPEAT. Peyton will be discussing our broader social sustainability initiatives. And then finally, Scott will give us his insights and perspectives into how Qcells enables a circular economy with our brand new recycling business, EcoRecycle, and how we're building an integrated solar supply chain in Georgia with US products, from ingot to finished solar module. We'll then wrap with a Q&A at the end. And again, feel free to use the chat box to drop any questions you might have as we go along, and then we'll answer them at the end of this webinar. With that said, we've got a great agenda for you today, so let's kick things off. All right, starting off with a little bit of background on Qcells. Qcells has a rich 26+ year history of solar manufacturing leadership. We were founded in 1999 in the early days of the modern solar industry we know today, quickly becoming a market leader with a reputation for quality and innovation. In recent years, our company's undergone significant growth and transformation, not only serving as a solar and cell manufacturer, but really emerging and becoming this broader complete energy solutions. We offer a full suite of products and services, including modules, energy storage, software, financing, grid and energy services, and EPC services, all while consistently maintaining our #1 market share in the residential solar PV segment and leadership in the C&I segment. We cover the full spectrum of services serving the residential, utility scale, commercial, and industrial or CCI markets as well. Let's go to the next slide. As many of you are probably aware, Qcells is also backed by Hanwha Group, which is a 7th largest ranked business conglomerate in South Korea. Hanwha is a well-diversified corporation involved in areas beyond clean energy, including ocean solutions, aerospace, mechatronics, finance, retail and energy services, all worldwide. Hanwha is a Fortune Global 500 company and was also in 2024 listed as a Time 100 most influential company. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, that's billion with a B. Its diversification, long-standing history since 1952, and broader commitment to the clean energy space makes Hanwha really a key foundational part of Qcells' bankability. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica Chapman from our sustainability team, who's going to give us an introduction on EPEAT. Take it away, Jessica.
All right, thank you, Adam. All right, so first I want to start off with giving an overview of eco-labeling before I dive into EPEAT. So we can move on to the next slide, please. So eco-labeling is something that I'm sure we've all seen on various products, but what exactly they mean is not always so clear. So by definition, eco-labeling is a voluntary method of environmental performance certification and labeling. It identifies products or services that are proven to be environmentally preferable within a specific category. And within that eco-label umbrella, there are three different types. The first one being the type 1 eco-label. The type 1s are known as your classic eco-label and largely considered to be the best as they're the most widely understood, verified, and consumer friendly, and as they facilitate the ability to contrast different products easily. So of course, our focus today is the EPEAT eco-label, and that falls under the type 1 category. The type 1 eco labels are awarded only by a reputable third-party organization, and they're time limited, meaning that the companies are required to periodically go through the recertification process. They're also based on a standardized criteria that's determined by independent experts and available to public evaluation and go through a periodic review and update process. So I've added some type 1 examples here on the slide, some of which you've likely seen before or have sitting in your pantries at home right now, such as the USDA Organic and the Fair Trade label. And the US Green Building Council's LEED certification is another example many people are likely familiar with. So then next we have the type 2 eco labels, which are self-declared environmental claims made by manufacturers. They differ from type 1 in that they're without this independent third-party verification. Now, type 2 labels still have to be verified, and of course, they cannot be misleading, but they just don't have to go through the same third-party verification process as the type 1, and they won't be included on like an official eco-label database, such as the EPEAT registry, which I'll speak on later. And these type 2 eco labels are often simple, more generic logos or claims about a product's environmental feature, such as non-toxic, energy efficient, or PFAS-free, which is one we're starting to see more and more often on products. And then lastly, we have the type 3 eco labels, which include environmental product declarations, I'm sorry, or EPDs, or similar quantitative verified environmental reports like a life cycle assessment or an LCA. They provide transparent data on the environmental impact of a product or service across its life cycle. So unlike type 1 or type 2, it's heavily data focused and often used by architects, engineers, or procurement teams. And this may be my opinion, but I would say that of the three types, type 3 eco labels, especially like EPDs and LCAs, are undergoing the most change right now due to enhanced data efficiency and data collection and modeling, which can be attributable to AI, which, as we know, has been the hot topic of the year for almost every industry. And I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few years, we do see significant growth in the EPD market due to its changing landscape, making them faster and easier to generate and verify. All right, next slide, please. So now let's get into our hot topic of the hour, EPEAT. So what exactly is EPEAT? Where did it start? And what does its eco label really mean? Well, EPD or EPEAT is a sustainability eco-label standard that was created and managed by the Global Electronics Council, or the GEC. The EPEAT eco-label, I'm going to probably jumble over that phrase a couple times in this presentation, but it's very well known and established within the electronics industry as it was created almost 20 years ago in 2006, where the GEC developed it in collaboration with the US EPA. And today it remains the leading type 1 eco-label for solar panels and other electronics. And at large, the GEC collaborates with various stakeholders to drive sustainable procurement practices and supports initiatives like the Circular Electronics Partnerships, or the CEP, to promote circularity in the electronics sector. So being a type 1 eco-label, EPEAT is a voluntary but comprehensive tool that helps purchasers identify more sustainable products. And products that meet the EPEAT criteria are registered and identified on the public-facing website managed by the GEC and known as the EPEAT registry, as I mentioned. And as it sounds, this eco-label is very focused on product-level sustainability, though it does require enterprise emissions data and disclosure, which I will touch on more later. So intuitively, EPEAT registered products are designed to meet the strict sustainability criteria and to have lower impacts on people and the planet than non-registered products. Now, I mentioned that it's well known, but just how well known? Well, the federal government actually plays a significant role in promoting EPEAT through its procurement policies and initiatives, with the federal agencies required to use EPEAT registered products. Specifically, per a Federal Acquisition Regulation, or FAR for short, which is the principal set of rules governing government procurement, EPEAT registered products are required for 95% of all US federal agencies' electronics procurement, which right there makes up for a pretty large market footprint. All right, next slide, please. So being as though there are quite a few electronics out there, you may be wondering what types of electronics can be EPEAT registered. Well, EPEAT offers the most comprehensive online registry of electronics products and categories in existence, with more registered products for more brands in more countries than any other eco-label out there. Manufacturers of all sizes participate in the EPEAT program, from Fortune 500 global leaders to emerging brands, and I featured the logos of just some of those companies with EPEAT registered products on the slide here. Like, I'm sure you're all familiar with Google, Microsoft, Samsung, and Toshiba. If not, perhaps you've heard of Apple. Now, because the EPEAT registry is publicly available, purchasers can use the free online registry to compare hundreds of products head to head on performance related to sustainability and climate leadership. The 7 product categories with which offer the EPEAT Eco label are noted on this slide, with our focus today being, of course, on the photovoltaic modules and inverters, or the PVMI category. The PVMI category is a relatively new EPEAT category, with the GEC launching the EPEAT Eco label for photovoltaics in 2017 to address sustainability concerns within the PV sector, and in 2019, the category was expanded to include inverters. And for all product categories, the EPEAT requirements are intentionally designed to be challenging to obtain in order to promote leadership in sustainable design and innovation. For example, the PVMI category, only 30% of all US solar products are anticipated to meet the entry certification level. And since the PVMI category was created, Qcells is the second solar company to receive certification. And that being said, we would absolutely like to see more solar manufacturers participate in the EPEAT Eco Label program and achieve certification for their products. All right, next slide, please. So to achieve the EPEAT registration for PVMI products, there are numerous requirements manufacturers have to achieve, and then from there are different levels the manufacturer can obtain for a product within the EPEAT certification. So for this baseline registration, all manufacturers must meet 17 requirements, one of which includes the newer low carbon solar, or LCS, requirement that was implemented on June 4th, 2024. Then beyond the required criteria, manufacturers may meet a number of optional points for a product that then define its certification level. So the bronze is the entry level certification, requiring no additional points, and then silver requires 50% of the optional points, and gold requires 75%. And now going back to the newer low carbon solar requirement, low carbon solar certifies that products have a calculated verified carbon footprint, or VCFP, below a set threshold to meet the minimum LCS requirements. Beyond the minimum LCS threshold, there's an even lower threshold designated ultra low carbon solar. Now, to not get too technical, but just to make sure we all understand what this verified carbon footprint means and what it entails, it is quantified by calculating a product's cradle-to-gate total embodied carbon. So this cradle-to-gate total embodied carbon of a product calculates the total greenhouse gas emissions, or the environmental impacts associated with the product's raw material extraction and production, and up to the point that the product leaves the factory gate. So the units of embodied carbon are expressed as a value of kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilowatt peak, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll just refer to it as embodied carbon. And now that we've cleared that part up, so the GEC actually just finished its low carbon solar pilot program phase, which Qcells was very excited to participate in. And the participating pilot programs completed their low carbon solar assessment and registration just earlier this year. And with that, we're excited to say that upon Qcells' completion of the pilot program, we were able to achieve the low carbon solar registration, making Qcells the only polysilicon-based PV manufacturer with an EPEAT registered low carbon solar product. That's a mouthful. And while we're continuing to strive to lower our product's embodied carbon, at this time, we have not found it feasible to obtain the ultra low carbon threshold using our polysilicon-based PV technology and our supply chains. Next slide, please. All right, so what exactly does the EPEAT required criteria actually consist of? Well, in addition to the verified carbon footprint, there are several categories companies are required to disclose throughout the EPEAT registration process, and some categories require an annual disclosure after the initial registration. So the main EPEAT criteria requirements encompass climate change mitigation, sustainable use of resources, reduction of chemicals of concern, responsible supply chains, as well as corporate performance. So within those criteria, some examples of metrics that must be calculated, documented, and disclosed include a publicly published annual disclosure of key performance indicators or KPIs, which includes metrics on recycled content, Scope 1 and Scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions, and energy and water and waste consumption. There's also an annual conflict minerals management disclosure. And then other requirements include product recycling policies, management of declarable high concern substances, and reduction of high global warming potential emissions in factories. In short, the EPEAT criteria are thorough and very comprehensive, and they touch on all facets of sustainability and supply chain and environmental management. Next slide, please. Okay, so of course, it's important to look at the bigger picture here, and to do so, we want to paint a picture of how EPEAT registered module compares to an average module on the market. So in one of our analyses, using our product's life cycle assessment or LCA data, we calculated that in comparison to an average utility scale 100 megawatt solar PV project, a same size project with Qcells EPEAT registered panels would have about 37% lower emissions for the same power output. And this 37% emissions delta equates to significant lower environmental impacts for our customers. With that emissions offset translating to the carbon emissions of the energy use of over 4,000 US homes for 1 year, or the emissions of over 7,500 gas-powered passenger vehicles driven for 1 year. I would say that's a pretty good value add right there. So to break this down further into economic terms, we also calculated a simple carbon payback period. So under standard conditions, a single 590 watt panel, like our EPEAT registered QPeak Duo XL, can produce roughly 67.7 kilowatt hours per month. So then by comparing the embodied carbon of a single panel to the average grid energy emissions it takes to produce the same amount of energy allows us to compare the module's carbon payback periods. So from the visual, you can see while both modules produce the same amount of energy each month, the QPeak Duo XL's carbon payback period is 10.8 months in comparison to a standard PV's payback period of about 17 months. Thus, the EPEAT registered module offsets its embodied carbon significantly faster. So in summary, there are many different ways to paint the same picture that at the bottom line here, when you're exploring the market of solar products, you want a product that is designed and produced with as much sustainability in mind as its core objective, to lower emissions. And EPEAT registered products have done the due diligence and have you covered there. Next slide. All right, so let's bring things back around to what the actual value of EPEAT is and why it matters to stakeholders like you. Well, the bottom line up front is that by using or purchasing EPEAT registered products, customers can reduce their emissions for the same power generation with no extra legwork for the purchaser. And who doesn't like getting a little bit more value without having to do any extra legwork? And now, because EPEAT is independently third-party verified, customers can really rest easy knowing that the due diligence of assessing a sustainable product is already done. So basically, like, have no fear here because there's no greenwashing. And that translates nicely into my next point, that because EPEAT has a simple and easy to understand rating system, it is very user-friendly and has a streamlined market understanding. And then, as I've touched on, EPEAT is a well-known market differentiator, with entities like the federal government recognizing it as the gold standard. All right, so the last slide was, or sorry, next slide, please. So the last slide was a great segue onto our next portion of the webinar, which covers Qcells sustainability commitments. They don't just start and end with EPEAT, right? But rather it's how EPEAT is a program to exemplify our broader sustainability stewardship and company initiatives. Next slide, please. But first, I bet you're all wondering, wait a minute, so what products does Qcells actually have EPEAT registered? Well, on this slide, I just want to visualize the genesis of our EPEAT journey and where it is headed. So here's a brief timeline. So in May of 2024, we achieved the EPEAT bronze tier for our QPeak Duo XL module, which is a commercial, industrial, and utility module, and our Qtron module, which is a residential module, and they're both assembled at our Dalton, Georgia factory. And then the very next month in June 2024 was when the GEC implemented the low carbon solar requirement as an additional part of the existing criteria, and that we were required to obtain this in order to maintain our EPEAT Ecolabel certification. So then fast forward to September 2025 of this year, we obtained the low carbon solar registration for the same two modules. And I'm sure you're all wondering, what's next? Well, moving into 2026, we have 2 to 3 new modules in the EPEAT registration pipeline, all of which we're planning to be the commercial, industrial, and utility scale modules. And we're planning to have at least one of our new EPEAT registered modules to be manufactured out of our new factory in Cartersville, Georgia, which we're very excited about. And my colleague Scott will speak more as to why we're so excited about it later on in the webinar. But in summary, I want to convey that because the EP criteria process is so thorough and due diligent, it does take time. And for us here at Qcells, it took us more than 2 years to achieve the first time. But now that we have established processes to collect the immense amounts of data required, we expect future registrations can be achieved in about 6 to 9 months. And now that we're certain that the juice is worth the squeeze, we're ready to continue moving forward with our EPEAT journey. Next slide, please. So I know I touched on life cycle assessments or the LCAs earlier, but I would like to dive in a little deeper as they really tie into how Qcells is committed to sustainability. So an LCA measures the environmental impacts of a product through the different phases of its life, including its birth or manufacturing and production, then its gate or when the product is purchased and leaves the factory or facility walls, and then it measures the impacts of the product at its end of life or its grave, and can even go further to a product's rebirth or its reuse and recyclability. So when I talked about EPEAT's verified carbon footprint earlier in this presentation, that specifically measures the product's impact from the cradle to gate or up until the time of purchase. So by modeling and conducting this technical quantifiable LCA analysis, each product will have a unique embodied carbon depending on the component sourcing and assembly locations. And then to tie this back to Qcells sustainability commitments, by conducting LCAs here at Qcells, we're measuring our impacts beyond the walls of our factories and thereby measuring our broader environmental impacts at each step of the process, especially within a solar module's carbon hotspot, which for a polysilicon-based module is mainly accumulated at the raw material extraction and manufacturing steps of its life cycle. And thus, by measuring our modules' impacts from their birth to end of life and then beyond by designing our products for reuse and recyclability, we are truly measuring our modules' impacts from cradle to cradle, which covers a product's full life cycle and translates nicely into our next slide, please. So by designing our products for this recyclability and reuse or cradle to cradle, this demonstrates our commitment that Qcells is building towards a circular economy. And the circular economy, as we know it, is an economic model that aims to keep materials and products in use for as long as possible, minimizing waste and all in all promoting sustainability. So here in this slide, you can see that for each major component of a Qcells module, there's a specific recycling process either already in place or the separation technology is in the process of being developed. And Qcells is really dedicated to researching and advancing these recycling processes to develop its own breakthrough polysilicon-based PV recycling program, which my colleague Scott will also speak to in more detail here shortly. But before that, I would like to pass things off to my colleague Peyton, who will continue to highlight other key elements of our sustainability commitments. Take it away, Peyton.
All right, thank you, Jessica. And hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here today to share a bit more about how Qcells continues to invest in sustainability initiatives as a market leader in clean energy. So starting off here, a great example of this that I want to highlight for you all today is our partnership with Navajo Power Home. So back in 2024, Qcells donated 1,000 solar modules to Navajo Power Home. And this was to provide electricity for more than 300 homes located on the Navajo Nation Reservation. So our sustainability team was excited to support on this project. And it actually represents the first at-scale donation from a solar manufacturer to support the electrification of tribal lands. Next slide, please. All right, so the second project that I want to highlight today was actually an initiative from the Hanwha Group as a part of their pledge to support 1T.org. So in case you aren't familiar with 1T.org, it's a World Economic Forum initiative aiming to enhance global reforestation work through a combination of conservation, restoration, and growth of 1 trillion trees by 2030. So as a part of their pledge to this, the Hanwha Group has pledged to plant 20 solar forests worldwide by 2030. And you might be wondering, what is a solar forest? Because trees already grow based on the sun. But a solar forest actually is where you incorporate solar panels into the tree nursery where the seedlings are grown, and then those seedlings are then planted later. So it creates a more overall sustainable initiative from the start. So the Qcells Sustainability Team is working to expand this work to the US. And we're working with a local tree planting partner based out of Georgia to install a solar system that will cover a portion of their electricity needs at their tree nursery. And then we'll be planting seedlings from that nursery in northern Georgia. Um, and quite on brand with today's webinar, the donated array for growing these seedlings is actually our Qtron EPEAT-registered solar panel. So very excited about that tie-in with what Jessica was presenting on earlier. So yeah, I encourage you all to keep an eye out for more updates on this specific project as we get moving ahead. And as always, our sustainability team is just really excited about all these initiatives we've been working on. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate Peyton. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. And for those of you former Marines and current Marines, happy Marine Corps birthday today, November 10th. Before we dive into the next couple of slides here into the operational updates, I just wanted to kind of anchor our discussion in the why. At Qcells, we understand that our customers don't just want energy, they demand truly clean energy. And that means addressing the entire life cycle, which is the point of this discussion and the EPEAT label. Everything you're about to see in the next couple of slides and what you've seen before is really about our recycling partnerships and our massive U.S. manufacturing investment in Cartersville and in Georgia throughout the state. It's strategically driven by our goal to provide a comprehensive cradle-to-cradle solution that the market requires. This commitment is what makes Qcells a leader in achieving this EPEAT low-carbon solar standard. We're just not making solar panels here. We're really trying to move the industry forward. And if you go to the next slide, let's look at how we're doing that. So you'll see a map on this. This map shows our planned U.S. recycling coverage and facilities. It illustrates how we're fundamentally changing the solar life cycle. I mean, the industry has really lacked an integrated recycling solution for the past 20 years. Qcells ending that gap by establishing the first crystalline solar producer with a full value chain, manufacturing all the way through to recycling on U.S. soil. This initiative is a physical embodiment of our commitment to a truly circular economy. We're transforming the solar life cycle from a linear path to a closed loop by ensuring the recovered materials are reintroduced right back into our manufacturing process. And I'll go into that in a little bit in the next couple of slides. The key to this EPEAT verification, this entire life cycle is the key to the verification because it directly addresses end-of-life management requirement, which is a crucial component of the global gold standard that was talked about earlier in terms of sustainable procurement. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So part of that partnership has already been initiated with Green Tech Renewables. This is where we take the recycling concept and turn it into tangible, scalable action. The partnership is this execution of a recycling strategy. We launched public collection hubs, and we've begun in Florida to gather end-of-life damaged panels, providing that recyclability is feasible today. We also have a facility that's co-located at our facility here in Cartersville in the white area that's designed to recycle up to about 500,000 panels annually. By actively recovering valuable materials, including glass, aluminum, copper, silver for reuse, that was highlighted in an earlier slide, we're simultaneously minimizing landfill waste, which is good for me and my budget, as well as strengthening domestic US supply chain. These collaboration and collection hubs serve as the proven scalable model for our nationwide expansion. We're demonstrating that advanced product end-of-life management is possible, and it paves the way, hopefully, for more widespread industry adoption. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So this is where I'm living and residing, and that's a pretty massive building. I started here when it was a dirt field, and over the past 2 years, we've seen it grow up into something truly spectacular. This is the foundation of our entire low carbon promise. In this visible kind of aerial view, you see the manufacturing facility in Cartersville, Georgia, and actually in the background, there's one of our partner sister companies, Hanwha Advanced Materials, is making some of the raw material that goes into our factory. This factory and this facility represents about a $2.8 billion investment. And it is, as I mentioned, the physical manifestation of our commitment. It's the first vertically integrated crystalline solar supply chain in the US. And we're the first to build ingot, wafer, cell, and module assembly all under one relatively large roof. It's about 2.5 million square foot under roof in this facility. This US integration allows us to achieve the EPEAT low carbon solar standard. And that's really done because we're removing all of those logistics and transportation. Typically, a solar facility of this magnitude would compromise a number of buildings across many different geographies, in fact, global geographies. And by putting it all under one roof, we remove all of those transportation logistics costs, as well as optimizing our facility and making it easier for us to innovate and adapt to new changes in technology. The verified result of this facility is a panel with about 73% lower carbon footprint than comparable imported products. And this translates into immediate value for our customers. It's verified, and it's a massive reduction in these upstream Scope 3 emissions. And this is what the customers and you on the phone and the call are very excited about. For major buyers out there that are committed to net zero, choosing Qcells is the fastest path to reducing that largest percentage of their total carbon output. Finally, even internally, our commitment is clear. 100% of the PV scrap from this facility is recycled, reinforcing our dedication to clean manufacturing standards and to our philosophy around EPEAT. Before I hand it back over to our other presenters, I think I want to just summarize, making sure that you realize that Qcells is delivering more than just high quality solar modules. We deliver verifiable, comprehensive, clean energy. Our investment in the US manufacturing and eco-recycling infrastructure isn't just about leadership. It's about giving you decisive advantage required to meet your sustainability mandates. By choosing Qcells, you gain a partner who understands the market and who provides the immediate and massive reduction in upstream Scope 3 emissions necessary for you to achieve those net zero goals. We're ready to support you in your most demanding clean energy goals with products that meet the highest standard. And we're looking forward, as was mentioned earlier, to introducing even more EPEAT certified products. I really thank you for your time today. I want to hand it over to Adam for some closing comments.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott, for bringing that home. Great perspectives there on kind of how of the whys and how we're truly committed to bringing these solutions to our customers in a very multifaceted approach. So just before we transition over to Q&A, just wanted to kind of pull together some key takeaways of today's conversation, sort of in continuation of what Scott was talking about as it relates to our whys here. But the first one, while representing and serving as a solar market leader in the industry, Qcells, we're also committed to leading and really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in sustainability to set new benchmarks in the industry. So with our EPEAT-registered modules, we're empowering our customers to make more informed, value-driven decisions when it comes to selecting your products. So Jessica earlier, she made the point that EPEAT-registered products are actually required for 95% of US federal agencies' electronics procurement, meaning that also includes solar products. So if you're going up for bid for a federal project, for example, we've got you covered with a compliant module option that you can confidently depend on. Peyton pointed out also, sustainability is not only inherent in the products we make, but we're also supporting broader activities that help accelerate equitable energy access and really promoting cleaner energy future for communities. Scott also talked about establishing a circular economy with the launch of EcoRecycle and our broader commitment to localizing our supply chain here in the US and creating products with domestic content to better serve today's market. So all of that kind of being put together, we hope you walk away from today's webinar knowing that although we're in an environment where solar modules have sort of become more standardized and commodified, the reality really is that not all solar is created equal, and there are certain ways that we are producing our products where we can leverage differentiators for when you're making your product decisions. The EPEAT Ecolabel is a great example of that, how you can rest assured that you're going with a third-party verified product that meets stringent sustainability criteria. And overall, Qcells, we're envisioning a future where even more manufacturers embrace this EPEAT Ecolabel going forward, setting the path to a more sustainable energy industry going forward. And with that, we will transition over to Q&A. I think we've got one question to kick things off here, and then we'll monitor the chat box here for anyone else who wants to ask a question. But yeah, the first one I've got here, I'm going to pass this to Jessica. This is related to kind of our origins into why we decided to take the EPEAT route. So Jessica, can you tell us a little bit more about how we decided to get involved with pursuing the EPEAT Ecolabel program and a little bit more context there?
Yeah, so even before EPEAT, Qcells was and continues to be committed to creating a low carbon solar panel. And this was also a driving force behind our commitment to building a domestic solar supply chain. So as part of this effort, we wanted to find a reputable method to prove how much lower carbon our products actually are. And that's when we discovered the EPEAT Ecolabel could provide us with this proof, not only for our reduced carbon, but also a slew of other important sustainability factors as well, like conflict minerals and looking upstream into the supply chain and this traceability and, recyclability and all these other components. So you're not just getting this lower carbon, but you're really getting this fully nicely packaged up, comprehensive sustainability look at a product.
Excellent. I've got another question here. Can you talk us a little bit about the costs that went into securing the EPEAT Ecolabel?
Yes. So as part of the EPEAT Ecolabel, there are a couple of different costs associated. So you have to pay your annual membership fees to the GEC, and that's to maintain on the registry, and you get support from the GEC, with your compliance throughout that process. There's also costs associated with doing a third-party factory audit for the traceability and the low carbon solar registration. And then if you can't do it in-house, there are costs associated with running the LCA and life cycle cost assessment process and modeling. And then of course there's the, human capital investment that Qcells has. So obviously my position works directly with EPEAT, and that is a direct investment. And it's also like an investment that the company really believes in because it shows a further dedication to our sustainability and having integrity as a company and doing kind of these practices that a good company really should be doing, right? And I would say that in the grand scheme of things, the actual realized costs associated with the EPEAT Ecolabel are pretty small in comparison to the benefits that you get out of the program.
Excellent. Any other questions? Got a little bit more time here today, so feel free to not hold back. Don't be shy.
I know we've got some questions out there.
I think that means that we did a pretty good job here, Jessica, Peyton, Scott, putting all this material together. So I think unless there are any other questions, oh, here we go. Let's see. Oh, this is a great one. Are there any programs similar to EPEAT that Qcells hopes to explore in the near future?
Yes, so I can speak a little bit to that from what I know from the sustainability window, but I know that we are looking into finding perhaps an environmental product declaration program that we can get involved with. But of course, as I talked to a little bit in the presentation, just how much we kind of are anticipating that market to change with the enhancements of AI. We're kind of waiting to see what happens a little bit, and seeing what other opportunities or where the market goes with that first. I don't know if any others have anything that they know about.
Great. Any other questions out there?
I think I see one in the chat about, can you speak to what raw materials are imported? So one is the polysilicon that feeds into the ingots and wafers, and Scott can probably speak to this a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of a giant chicken and the egg game. When we talk about the raw materials involved in solar panel, it's nearly 100% recyclable. It's glass, it's sand, it's fancy sand, it's aluminum and steel and wires. Right now, because the market has been largely international, a lot of the supply chains are also international. So we're working very hard to domesticate all of the pipelines. I think it's until you've got investment at scale, like our facility in Cartersville, it's difficult to justify market investment in products that support an international destination of its product. So it's coming, and it's coming rapidly with the amount of investment we've had. But there's very few component parts that are brought in internationally, and polysilicon is the one for us.
Thanks for taking that, Scott and Jess. All right, let's see. Oh, this is a good one. This is from an installer who is looking to communicate this information to customers that are end users. So the question is, as an installer, how can I communicate this effect to my customers that are end users? And I think we can speak broadly on sustainability. So Jessica, do you want to take this one, take a stab at this one?
Yeah, I would say that as far as EP goes, it's a pretty easy sell. It's like if you're in the market and you have a product that has an eco label or something like this, and you have a comparable product that has nothing, it's pretty much it's a no-brainer which one you want to go with. And definitely when you talk about what gets bundled into that, and hopefully you're talking to a customer at the end who does value these things similarly, but I would say that that's just kind of one great market advantage as it is. It kind of speaks for itself. And then if you want to, I guess if you're getting at how do you really succinctly say what the EP eco label really entails or what it means, I would just say you're getting a sustainably verified solar product, which in the renewable energy industry kind of really values what you're getting at to begin with. So that's one easy way. And you can see it on our website. It's labeled on each product that offers the EP Eco label. So that's one
Yeah,
easy.
and I think some of the other to build a little bit on this, a little bit tangential to your question is, your customers, I think they're interested not only in solving whatever energy solution problem they were looking for, but they're hoping to feel good about their purchase. And this verifiable label gives them those assurances that all the due diligence has been done to make sure that it's not only good for their solution, but is good for the environment. And the other thing too is it's baked into it, and maybe a little bit behind the lines is because so much of the embodied carbon is involved in like movement of materials around the planet, for instance, just the pure logistics of it. When you have a US, for the US, if you're a US installer, for the products made here, you're removing all that. It's all domestic. You've got an entirely domestic manufacturer of panels, all, you know, made in the US by Americans for Americans kind of thing. So it's embedded in the label. It's kind of behind the scenes. So I think that's another part of, you know, part of your communication package to customers and end users is not only is it get the sustainable thing, but it's gotten to be sustainable because we're paying attention to it and we're doing it all as local as possible. I hope that answers the question.
And one thing that I want to add to that, going off of what Scott said, that we didn't too much highlight in this presentation, but is a key point, is that durability is a component of this life cycle assessment. And so and that's an easy sell to a customer, is you want a product that is built to last and is going to, you know, serve until its end of life. And it's built not necessarily durability in terms of the material could never be destroyed, but that you're getting a long lifetime out of it, that it's built to last and it's a leader in the industry for where photovoltaics is going, and that, you know, you want it there for the next 20, 25, 30 years, right? So that's something that EPEAT really designs for it as well and accounts for it within its life cycle assessment. So that's a big sell, I would say.
Awesome, awesome. Any other questions for the panelists? All right. Actually, this one's got pertains to eco-recycle, and maybe you can speak or
Yeah,
embellish a little bit.
I'd love to give you an answer. I don't have like, oh, it's this address,
Yeah.
but I can, if you will send that note to us, I'll make sure that we put it in our material that goes out to the group. I don't want to give inaccurate information, but yes, there's a place for that. Watch this space because I'm not sure I have the exact details to be able to share with you. The question was, where can you drop off solar recycling? And then the question mark was Dalton, which is a city in North Georgia. And that's not the answer, but I'll make sure you get it.
Thanks, Scott. We have time for a couple more if folks have any other questions.
But just so far, thank you for these questions. They've been good ones.
All right. Well, I think we can conclude our Q&A. Of course, we will be sending this webinar recording out to all attendees. We really thank you for your time today. And please, again, stick around for the survey questions at the end. We'd really appreciate your time on providing some of your feedback for today's session. And again, thank you so much for joining us and your time, and we'll see you at the next one. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.